Hey guys, can you believe we've made it to Broken Boxster Battle episode 16? Thanks for all of my loyal supporters who have watched this whole tragedy unfold. As you've seen, we are down to the heart of this motor. So I want to do a little investigation and figure out exactly what happened. And I think I have the answer. You guys have probably heard the name Jake Raby before. He is somewhat associated with LN Engineering, and he has been doing Boxster and other Porsche engine rebuilds for a long time now. So Jake, as soon as I started telling him the symptoms, knew exactly what had happened to this engine. So let me just kind of show you how this thing is put together and running and what my theory was first. So you probably know that these are the valves down here. So there are two valves on top for the intake valves, two valves on the bottom for the exhaust valves for each piston. So this is cylinder 1, closest to the front of the car, cylinder 2, and cylinder 3, because this is in bank 1 on the passenger side of the car in the US. So this piece right here normally sits right over on the top of there. Then we have these little things, which are called the lifters. And they're comprised of a couple pieces that you can actually disassemble. There's a spring here, so this actually you can press. And these guys just sit right in there on top of the valves. And as you saw in mine, well, actually, to be more accurate, let me rotate this one. This one actually came from here, and this one came from here. You can see this one missing some critical components. So if you remember back to the beginning, I took the valve cover off. That is what we saw. We also see, well, let me actually drop them in here so you can see them. These are the actual cams that came out of bank 1. So let me set them in their place. Another thing I didn't know at all until I started messing with this is there's a little pin right there, and that goes into this kind of sleeve, I guess, on the crankshaft, and actually gets pinned into it once you rotate it. When you rotate it so it finds the pin. Okay, there, I think it pinned itself. So it actually stays like that and rotates around there. Okay, so you remember that there was a chain around here, and this chain ran through here to the intermediate shaft connected to that, and that is what turned these camshafts. That is the tensioner there that I never removed, and there was a chain guide or chain rail that sits here that this presses up against to put pressure on the chain to keep it nice and tight and snug on the sprockets. You will probably recall that this is what that chain rail looked like, and it was snapped, and this plastic piece is what the chain normally rides on. It was all apart in this assembly once I opened it, and the chain was even snapped and all jammed up in there. And again, these are the pieces that I found inside here as well. This is that center piece that goes to the lifter, another part of that, missing the spring still, and 2 links to our chain that broke. So I know after time, the chain rails, the chain guides that keep the tension on the rails are made out of, they have a plastic cover on them, and that has a tendency to wear as the chain rides over them for, you know, many miles and years, and those things can be replaced separately. So my theory was that the chain guide wore down so much that the chain became loose, and that made these not work properly. So that would affect the timing of this whole thing, and the whole reason for the timing is, let me show you. So essentially our intake manifold sits on top of here, not that exact orientation of course, but you can see it mates up to those openings, and that is where our air comes into the engine, and our piston goes down to the bottom of the cylinder. It opens all the way up and it sucks air into here. And when it does that, these lobes are pressing down on these pistons so that the pistons will be open so that air can suck in there. And then when the lobe comes off of that, the lifter rises up and closes that valve. So after it draws all of the air in there, it closes that valve and the piston comes back up, compresses the air, and your fuel injectors are right here. And your fuel injectors are right here squirting fuel into the opening that the air comes in. So you have fuel and air in there, and then your spark plug screws right into here. Your spark plug is sticking down into that cylinder, and it sparks it and ignites it, pushes the piston back down through the cylinder, and of course that back and forth movement is what turns your crank, which turns your wheels, the whole point of an engine. When that explosion happens, the timing times these lobes to be opening these valves down here for the exhaust. And these fumes come down here into your catalytic converter, into the rest of your exhaust, and out the back of your car. So the timing is these valves open, let the air in, close, boom, these open, let the gases out. Really, really fast, over and over again. So my theory, again, was that the timing started becoming off because of that. And when the timing gets off, this valve was still open when that piston came up and hit it and knocked a hole in it. So I think there were several people watching who kind of, thought that's probably what was happening, but no. I had just started messaging Jake Raby, telling him about how one of the lifters punched a hole through my cam cover and drained the oil out. And at that point, he stopped me before I even got into the rest of the explanation and my theory. And he said, oh, I bet that it was bank one, cylinder one, and the innermost lifter from the intake. And I was like, what? How in the world did you know that? And he said, I've seen it happen many, many times. And the reason, he says, is because, I hope I get this right. Jake, please correct me if I'm wrong. He says that the lobes are not machined correctly on these. It happens a lot in these 2.7 liter engine. And what happens is these lobes start rubbing too much on the lifters, and it starts wearing away the surface, making it weak, and eventually it's going to fail and break like that. And I did notice, let me see if I can show you on this one. It's a little dirty, but look, you can see that the middle of this one is raised and about to fail. His term for it was that these things mushroom. So yeah, based on him seeing this a lot and knowing exactly where it happened, I'm gonna definitely believe him in his analysis of what happened. So because of this camshaft not being manufactured correctly, over time it started wearing on my lifter here until it failed. So this piece is what shot through my cam cover and broke it. But so the order of events was different than I thought. So I thought that something else happened first, causing this to eventually fail. But what I believe now is that this failed, and that piece came in here, traveled down here, got stuck inside the pump because our scavenger pump is right here. And when it got in that pump, it got stuck. Got the pump jammed up, which in turn caused this sprocket, the original one, this piece of the sprocket was snapped off. So the chain was still trying to turn this, but it was attached to a scavenger pump that would not turn. So it caused that thing to snap off. And then my chain got wonky, came off, got jammed up in there at some point, got caught on the rail, on the chain guide, I guess, and had enough force to snap that thing in half. And as we saw, if we come over to our intermediate shaft, you can see that that tooth here is all nicked and messed up. And this tooth is just broken off. So yeah, half of it is gone. So what does that mean for me? Oh, and in addition to this, because my valves were getting jacked up, here are my pistons on bank one. And this one, I actually can't feel anything here. I can feel some marks around here a little bit. So it looks like my valves made contact with my piston. This one I can actually feel and get a little bit of a fingernail under there. So yeah, that's what that looks like. And then over here, this is cylinder one. Actually, so this is my flywheel over here. So this is the back. So this should be cylinder three. And this one actually feels the worst, the biggest grooves in here. So what I'm trying to figure out is, do I need to replace these? Can I clean them up and ignore these little marks? Can I shave these little marks off? Can these be repaired? Do I just need new pistons? Are the rods probably fine? I don't know. Do I need to test anything, check anything? I assume that the rings are probably good if I keep the piston. If I get a new piston, of course, I'm probably gonna want new rings, I'm guessing. So yeah, this is the state I'm at, where I'm gonna reach back out to Jake, ask him his recommendation here. And I think I mentioned it in another video. These are the other two chains that were not damaged that came off, but because the engine went through so much stress with that other chain, I'm gonna assume that these may have stretched some, and to be safe, I'm probably going to want to at least replace all three chains, not just the one that broke altogether. I'm gonna need to replace my IMS. The bearing actually looks really, really good. I don't see any problems with it. My actual block seems like it's in great shape. I don't see any signs of bore scoring, chunking, anything like that with the bores on either bank one or two. So back to bank one, cylinder one, we can see even from this side that this valve is still up and none of the other ones on the top are. And all the valves on the bottom seem to be about the same for the exhaust. So just rotating this thing over, looking at the back side, I can see that all of these valves are open except for the failure one, which is stuck closed. All of the exhaust valves down here are closed. So that's on the bad bank. But on bank two, on this one, they look different as well. So this is, let's see, I guess this side is the back of the engine. So I think that means that this is cylinder 6. So I think cylinder 6 looks different than these other two cylinders. I would expect all of the valves to be closed since there is no cam shaft pushing on them. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's my assumption. So I bought the tool to go ahead and remove the valves. So I'm going to start out and practice on this bank because I know that I'm going to be replacing all of this stuff. And then I'll come over here and see if I find anything. All right, guys, I hope it didn't sound like I was just rambling the whole time. If you have been watching this series, hopefully some of that made sense. If it didn't make sense, I'm sorry. If this is the first video in this series you're watching, go back and start at the beginning. It'll make a lot more sense. So hopefully you guys are subscribed, you're liking this video series. In the next one, I'm gonna show you how to remove the valves as I learn how to remove the valves. Again, not an engine expert here. This is my first engine I've ever taken apart, taken out of a car, worked on it all in any way. So thank you for the community and all of your help. Another reason I put these videos out is not just to help you guys, but I love your feedback. I love you telling me what some of the issues could be and some options on things I can do. Especially Jake Raby, who has been incredibly helpful, and I'm gonna be buying some used parts from him next week. So I'm trying to get a list together. If you guys have suggestions on what I must replace, what I should replace. As I mentioned to Jake, this is not while I'm in there, I'm gonna do everything that I could, like if I was owning this car and it was, a $70,000 car, then yeah, I would be doing everything probably, and probably boring it out, making it bigger, all that stuff. But as you know, I bought the car to make the content, try to figure it out, try to fix it, just get it back together and sell it, not trying to flip it and make a ton of money, just trying to make some informative, helpful videos. So hopefully I've done that. I'm gonna shut up now and I'll see you on the next video.